It's the weekly Podbag episode. Your questions, your comments, your takes coming up today on Talking Buffalo.
Welcome to Talking Buffalo, featuring conversations with guests from around the world of sports, media, pop culture, and all things Buffalo, with your host, Patrick Moran.
All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. Today's episode is presented by Golf Dojo. Your space, your time, your game. Bring your game to Golf Dojo, Western New York's best indoor golf experience. Visit mygolfdojo.com. My name is Patrick Moran. Big thank you, as always, to everybody out there for watching, for listening, for following, for subscribing. I appreciate you all very, very much. Like I said, this is our weekly Podbag episode. This is the weekly episode where you control the narrative, your questions, your comments, your takes. I pluck them, I feature them on the show today and respond to them. This is maybe my favorite episode of the week because it's interactive. You have a say in what we talk about on the show. I got 12 good questions today, comments, takes, all Buffalo Bills too. Don't love that. You got to say that. I kind of like talking Sabres and some pop culture stuff, but today it is what it is. All Buffalo Bills stuff, understandably so. So much going on with this team. And I got to tell you, a little bit of a teaser here. The last one, I'm going to save it for the very end. This was a really good one, and it's had me thinking, still has me thinking. Actually, I still don't even know what my answer is. I guess I'll kind of figure that out in real time. And I really want to hear from you on this one. What would be your choice? That'll be at the end of the show. We're going to dive into these in just a second. Real quick, I like to kind of promote ahead of time when I'm going to have somebody live at a remote location. So this isn't until next week, but next Wednesday night, folks, I'm going to be live at Imperial Pizza. It's kind of like my home base for live remote shows. Now I'm going to be joined by Andy Young from Spectrum Sports. I'll tell you, man, Andy Young has done a great job, especially recently at Spectrum. There was an exodus of sports media talent that left there recently. John Scott left Spectrum to go take over the sports director job at WGRZ. And not long after that, Rachel Hopmeyer, who I thought was absolutely amazing, especially with her Sabres coverage. She left the market and she moved to another market in Detroit. Anyway, Andy Young has really stepped up, man. I have not had him on this show before, so I'm really looking forward to sitting down with him, getting to know a little bit more about him, his life, his career up until this point. And of course, we will dive heavily into the Buffalo Bills. So that'll be live next week. Before we get into the Podbags, a couple of actual Buffalo news items that I wanted to hit on real quick. On Tuesday, and I am recording this relatively early Tuesday afternoon for our Wednesday audio drop. On the video side, this is always available around 9-10 p.m. that night. But anyway, the Bills, a couple news items. They placed quarterback Shane Buechele and Chase Claypool on injured reserve. They signed wide receivers Deon Cain and Damiere Byrd. And yesterday, on Monday, they signed quarterback Ben DiNucci. I can't help but say it. Joe said something to me. I had Joe from Queens on the show. Whenever I say the name Ben DiNucci, it's almost like physically impossible to not say Ben DiNucci and have the fingers like an Italian talking. I love that. But anyway, so some moves from the Buffalo Bills. In the case of Buechele, look, I honestly, especially, and we could keep going on and on about how little the preseason means, if anything at all, but the way he played on Saturday, even before it was revealed that he hurt his neck, I didn't think he was even going to make this practice squad. He did not look good at camp. He looked terrible in the preseason game, so I was already thinking that the organization might go outside to look for someone else. At the very least, bring another quarterback and maybe push him for that QB3 / practice squad position. But anyway, it's not going to matter because he was placed on IR, effectively ending his season. As for Chase Claypool, I got to tell you, I'm we'll see what details emerge over the next couple days or so. But I'm a little bit surprised that the Bills made this move. And I say that because I remember being at training camp less than a week ago on Thursday. It was the Bills' last practice at St. John's Fisher. And while the team were doing, 11 on 11 stuff, there were individuals working on some agility drills. There were a couple guys, Ty Johnson, Olafosio, the linebacker, and Chase Claypool. And I thought Chase Claypool looked really good. In fact, I'll share this. I was talking with a person in the stands. I didn't even know who it was actually. And Claypool was moving around and I thought he looked really good. And for some reason, I just got the numbers confused. And I thought it was Matt Collins because Matt Collins did not practice last Thursday, didn't play against Chicago either. But he was moving around like the ladder drill really good. And I remember saying, like, Matt Collins, this injury's not serious. He's going to be back out there in a couple days. You could tell. And then somebody corrected me and said that was actually Chase Claypool. I was like, oh, shit, yeah, he's got number 14 on it. It's Chase Claypool. Thought he looked good in drills. I was actually surprised he wasn't practicing. I said at the very worst, he's got to be really close. He's been missing practices with a toe injury. So I was a little bit surprised on Tuesday to find that the Bills put him on IR. Maybe it's a case of we saw some good things from him since signing. I'm talking about from a Bills organizational standpoint. Get the year, be on IR because if you weren't going to make the roster, take time to get to know him more, have him around the team more, and maybe keep him around the organization and see how things play out going into next season. That's my first thought, but I don't know. Now, because he's on IR, he would be out for the year, but the Bills could and might reach an injury settlement with him over the next week. And if they were to do that, that means he would be free to either go sign with another team or he ultimately could come back and re-sign with the Bills. So maybe I'm thinking, maybe they put him on IR now because they need more bodies at camp. They need another wide receiver and they actually signed two. And maybe they did that because they want to, give him time to heal and they just don't want to have that one less wide receiver. And maybe they ultimately bring him back. I don't know. I'm a little bit confused, but regardless of how it works out for Chase Claypool, for the time being, at least anyway, it's kind of one of those, it was over before it really began things. I really don't know what to make of this receiver room right now. I had visions or at least, if not expectations, at least hope that when it came to like that wide receiver 5 or 6, that it would be a real good battle over the summer between two veterans that have done some good things in this league, Chase Claypool and MBS. Maybe one of them make the team, maybe both of them make the team. And it just never materialized. Like I said, Chase Claypool got hurt early. MBS, we'll talk about him a little bit during his Podbag. He has been up and down, not much of a factor, quite frankly, during camp or during the first preseason games. So I don't know what's going on with the wide receiver position, but if you look at it objectively and honestly, it's kind of a mess. You really need to hope that Shakir continues his progression and that Curtis Samuel is what you want him to be, like what he was in 2020 under Joe Brady in Carolina, that Coleman could do some things as a rookie, that Matt Collins is the Matt Collins that played for the Raiders 2 years ago and not the wide receiver that basically did nothing for, at least offensively anyway, for Atlanta last year. A lot of question marks, especially in the back half of this wide receiver room. But anyway, for the time being, at least, did not work out for Chase Claypool. Quick note, an AFC rival actually like this. Hassan Reddick demands a trade already. That came out on Monday. The Jets gave up a 3rd round pick to get him. And he wants a new contract, and he hasn't even stepped foot in practice yet. The team is finding him. They said they won't trade him. It's kind of wild. I feel like with the Jets, the Bills right now, because we talk about the Bills every day, there's an aura of uncertainty. I'll hit on that again later in this pod bag. But, dude, the New York Jets, who are being picked by so many to be a top 10, hell, I've even seen them be a top 5, 6 team projection-wise in this league. I'm going to tell you right now, if Aaron Rodgers, who's like 41 and coming off a major-ass injury, plus he's a douchebag, it wasn't that great in Green Bay 2 years ago anyway, but if Aaron Rodgers, if he's not great this year, that Jets team could absolutely implode. Like if he gets hurt again, or if he's not playing well, or guys around him aren't playing well, if the offensive line is not protecting him enough and he starts finger pointing, stuff like that. So many scenarios where Aaron Rodgers is not effective anymore or he gets hurt again. This team just absolutely could implode. They're that team right now that a lot of people are picking the clicky pick, where I can look back 5-6 months from now, and this isn't me being a Bills homer right now and just saying, well, yeah, AFC rival team, can't wait for them to suck. I'm saying this objectively. I honestly believe this. If Aaron Rodgers is not great, the Jets can completely implode this year. They also got a lame duck head coach in Saleh who could get fired. I'm here for all that. Now, that is a Bills fan and talking right now because I hate the Jets, but I'm also being objective. But yeah, I'm absolutely here for it. If Aaron Rodgers is not good or they get a couple other significant injuries, they can go right in the shitter this year. And again, they got a lame duck head coach who could get fired. Hell, maybe even gets fired during the season if they underachieve. I'm here for all that. Like, get that shit on HBO. I want to see the Jets in season Hard Knocks if things start to go south for them. Anyway, all right, let's dive into this pod bag. Like I said, I got 12. I almost said 10. I do got 12 questions, comments, takes from all you. And I want to remind everybody who might be watching this episode for the first time, if you want your question, your comment, your take featured on the pod bag episode, pretty simple. You can just go to the Talking Buffalo YouTube channel, go to any video that we put out. Almost all of our full-length episodes are on YouTube. Simply leave a comment. If it's a good one, if I think it's something worth discussing or a good question, I will pluck it and I'll use it on the show. Or you can tweet at me at Patrick Moran TV on the Twitter X, or you can email me talkingbuffalopodcast@gmail.com. All right, first one here from Spring Vulture 89. Love the show. And when you do power rankings, how would you rank the top 10 Buffalo Bills right now as things stand? Well, I'll tell you what. Thank you for that, by the way. Yes, I love power rankings. If you are not new to this show, or if you follow me on Twitter, I am always power ranking things. It's one of my favorite hobbies in the world, just ranking everything. In fact, today, Tuesday, I saw a graphic from an 80s nostalgia Twitter channel talking about 12 big movie releases from the year 1984. And I took the time to kind of evaluate them and come up with my own power rankings list. I've power ranked all 12 of them from first to worst. So yeah, I do love power ranking. This is a pretty tough one. Well, it's not tough at the beginning, but 2 through 10 to me was a little bit difficult, but I appreciated the question. And I thought this would be a little fun exercise to do. Of course, want to hear back from all you and what you think as well. But these are my top 10 Buffalo Bills players right now as things currently stand. I'm going to send some apologies out there to Daquan Jones and Khalil Shakir and Christian Benford, who I think are like right on the cusp of making this list, but maybe not quite there yet. And again, I'm not really going to do a whole lot of projecting here. This is where I think players are right now and, you know, where I think they will be in the foreseeable future. Start at 10, and we'll go from 10 to 1. Right now, I got Dalton Kincaid at 10, only going into his second year, but we saw so much from him last year, especially down the stretch. I expect him to continue to trend upward, become a great player. I think, conceivably anyway, I think he has the potential, the ability to be one of the top 10, not even top 10, I'm sorry, one of the top 3 to 5 tight ends in the NFL. I would say right now he's probably the second most reliable offensive pass catching weapon that they have on this team. So even though he's only going into year 2, I'm going to put him at 10. Number 9, I'm going to go Rasul Douglas, a solid, steady corner. By the way, what an absolutely incredible in-season trade Brandon Beane pulled off last year to add Rasul Douglas to this roster. You lose Trey White, and you got to go out, you got to get a veteran. And considering the contract, the compensation, all things considered, I'm not sure you could do better than Rasul Douglas. Kind of an overlooked guy right now. You know, there's a lot of quote unquote star or near star players on the Buffalo Bills. Rasul Douglas really not talked about much. A lot of training camp stuff. has been about Kyrie Elam potentially versus Christian Benford. But man, Rasul Douglas is just really rock solid here. So I got him at 9. Number 8, I'm going to go with James Cook, which is funny because James Cook, he's 4th in the NFL last year in rushing, 7th, I believe, in yards from scrimmage. Those are hella stats. Those are great stats. He had a great season. Well, he came on last season. He also can be very wishy-washy. We all know about the drops, some big-ass drops last year. And if you've been following the team through camp and even, not the preseason because he didn't have an opportunity, but through camp, he's had a couple drops, a fumble or two during camp, so a little bit worrisome. I look at him right now, and I think he might be one of the more under the radar kind of like enigmas on this team right now because I could easily see him being that featured back, maybe even the bell cow running back. Is it cowbell? Bell cow? I don't even know. I screwed this up when I was talking to Joe Miller at Resurgence the other day. But anyway, he could be that guy potentially. He could be a top 5 rusher in this league. He could be a top 5 yards from scrimmage running back in this league. I have no doubt about it. But I also like Ray Davis. I think Ty Johnson can do some good things. I think James Cook is, as talented as he is, I also think he's kind of mistake prone. So he puts the ball on the carpet. I can see Sean yanking him. And here's another thing to not forget about. Curtis Samuel is going to be a utility knife gadget type player. He's going to line up in the slot. He's going to line up in the boundary. And guess what? He's going to line up some in running back. So he might take some snaps from Cook. So Cook right now is 8. Maybe if I was doing this 12 months from now, he could be 4. But just as easily, he could actually be off this list. But anyway, I got him at 8. Number 7, Ed Oliver. Ed Oliver is a great player at times. He always dominates. This time of year, we always talk about how great Ed Oliver is because he's pretty much unblockable at training camp. He has games in the regular season where he's unblockable. His stretches where he looks like all-pro Ed Oliver. And then he has stretches where he disappears. And unfortunately for the Buffalo Bills, and I keep beating this drum like, I'm beating the dead horse. I get it. I understand that. But it doesn't make it not accurate when I say that unfortunately for the Buffalo Bills, the last 2 years when they've been eliminated in the playoffs, Ed Oliver has been utterly invisible. He has done nothing for the Bills the last 2 seasons when they've lost in the playoffs. Potentially, he could be a top 3-4 player on this football team. I think the Bills need him to be a top 3-4 player on this football team because for me to be a top 3-4 player on this football team, that means that you absolutely have to step up and be a great player in the biggest moments. And as good as Ed Oliver's been, that has not been the case in the biggest moments. So that's why I only got him at 7. Number 6, Greg Rizzo. I think he's going into a big year. This could be the year where he really steps up and takes that, he goes to that next level. Right now, I think he's a great edge defender. He is great against the run. And I think he's a pretty good pass rusher. He does a lot of things very well. But getting the quarterback to the ground has not been one of them through his first 3 years. I think 8 is his career high in sacks. I want to see that get up to 11 or 12. The opportunity is going to be there. But the fact of, again, how good he is all around, that has him, for me, at number 6. Number 5, some people might think this might be a little bit high, but I got Terrell Bernard at number 5. I think this guy had one of the better first-year jobs as a starting linebacker that I've seen in Buffalo in a very long time. From literally week 1, he showed that not only would he be adequate in replacing Tremaine Edmonds, but that he was an impact player. He's a speedy player, but he also has explosive plays too. He makes those plays that could change games. He gets sacks. He gets interceptions. He forces fumbles, gets fumble recoveries, tackles for loss. He does a lot of things that impact the game very well. I have him at 5 right now. I feel pretty comfortable about that. I can't really say, I almost was going to say that I could have him higher, but realistically, I think 5 is a perfect spot for him. Number 4, I got Deion Dawkins, the left tackle, and I'm going to kind of fly through the rest of these. Deion Dawkins, number 4. a multiple-time Pro Bowler right now, rock steady on the offensive line. The offensive line was a strength last year. I'm a little bit more concerned about it this time around with a couple of changes, but one thing I'm not really concerned about is left tackle. Deion Dawkins has been rock solid. Maybe he's reached his ceiling, but if this is his ceiling, that's perfectly fine because he has been outstanding. Number 3, Taron Johnson, quite literally an all-pro slot corner. Uh, we see the difference between the Buffalo Bills defensively when he's healthy and he's on the field and when he's not. This, quite frankly, is just a much, much better football team with Taron Johnson on the field. He does so many things well. Coverage is not a lot of interceptions, but he does have big plays. I mean, you got to go back to the playoffs a couple years ago, so you know that already against Baltimore. But he's a physical defender, a sticky defender, good enough that you can run that base nickel, and he could serve as a linebacker, and he plays that role so, so well. Like, when he's off the field, with all due respect to Cam Lewis, the drop-off is literally night and day. Number 2, Matt Milano. Matt Milano is an all-pro linebacker, one of the most impactful players in the league. And when he's healthy and when he's right, which he's not quite there yet right now, but he's trending towards being that. Hopefully he will be by week 1. Like I said with Taron, this is just such a better defense with Matt Milano on the field. He does everything. He does everything. Number 1, do I really need to explain it? It's Josh Allen. Josh Allen easily is number 1. No further comment needed there. Let's take a quick break, come back, and I'm going to fly through these next handful of these here on the Podbag. All right, we are having our weekly Podbag episode, the episode where you control the narrative. We've actually only been through one question, comment, or take through the break, but we're going to fly through these a little bit quicker now here on the back end. Question, what is a potential development with this team we could see play out that maybe we didn't see coming right now? All right, thank you. Good question. I'll say this. If either Connor McGovern struggles badly at center or if David Edwards at guard, if he could show that he's ready, I think maybe Cedric Van Granger, the rookie, the 5th rounder, could step in and become the starting center sooner than we thought. I don't think that's going to be week 1. Now, if there's an injury to Connor McGovern, or if there's an injury to David Edwards, maybe that might, expedite it. Although I would think Alec Anderson would be that first guy up for that to happen. But I think if Van Granger impresses, I thought he played, especially when I went back and actually rewatched it again, I thought he was one of the few offensive linemen that played pretty well on Saturday. He's had an up and down camp, but the Bills love his potential, and he's a natural-ass born center. I can see a scenario. Like I said, if Connor's not working out a center, maybe you put him back to guard. Or if David Edwards is playing badly and you got to move McGovern to guard, maybe or put an Anderson to guard, maybe you decide on Van Granger. It's a little bit out there, but she asked for a potential scenario that nobody sees coming. That certainly could be one of them. David B. Bell says, I think it's fair to evaluate the players we saw on the field. They are fighting for their jobs, and many of them didn't live up to even our lowest expectations. All right, this is in response to Saturday's preseason debacle against the Chicago Bears. I've been pretty vocal, both on this show and on social media, that I was a little bit disgusted with the way the Buffalo Bills looked, to which many, many, many people have said that it's the preseason, and that means absolutely jack shit, which, for the record, so we're clear, if we're not already, I mostly agree with that. Preseason means 0 in terms of if you win or lose. I understand that. The score means nothing. A lot of personnel, or formations, a lot of schemes, a lot of things you're doing, it really means 0. But I don't buy it when it comes to personnel. There's players on this team where preseason is going to make or break them. So, and I've been pretty vocal about that. But anyway, to his point, I agree. Preseason records don't mean shit. But guys who aren't established, it means a lot. Look no further than KJ Hamler. KJ Hamler went into Saturday against Chicago, probably the odds-on favorite to be the team's kick returner, punt returner this year. and he didn't help himself whatsoever. He fumbled the kickoff. He dropped the pass on the offense. Not a good day for him. So he did not help his case at all. I would also argue, Saturday didn't really help MVS either. So there's that. If you want to go to the defensive side of the ball with a low-key guy, Kendall Williamson, I noticed this. He got second-team reps at safety. He was the first safety off the bench, not Burgess, not Kareem Jackson. He got the first call, and he really kind of made a couple bad mistakes, including a really stupid personal foul penalty. So sure, even with lower expectations or whatever, there's guys that really hurt or help their chances of where they're going to be on the depth chart, or in some cases, even being able to make the roster. So I completely agree with that. John Kennedy, laughing at this because this is pretty wild. McDermott is cooked. He's out of buttons to push with this group. He's done well to build the organization and expectations, but we need a new voice to get them over the top. Has been true for 2 seasons already. Well, that reminds me, the last question of this show on the Podbag, make sure you stick around because it is Sean McDermott related. And I think it's a good one, and I want your input. John, look, thanks for the take, but let's reserve that for the end of the season. I mean, good God, I thought I was overreacting to a meaningless preseason loss against the Chicago Bears. If you're basing this whatsoever on what you saw on Saturday, I think you're taking it to the extreme. I'll say this, though. This team has lost a lot of leadership. A lot of veteran leadership in that locker room and on the sidelines with Trey and Jordan and Micah and Stefan and Gabe Davis and Mitch Morse. They lost a lot of that. I think Sean McDermott's going to have to be at his best this season. Like, if the Bills are going to win the division and be anywhere from a 1 to 3 seed in the playoffs, I think this might be a year where Sean McDermott might need to have his best year. Like, if the Bills are going to be where they need to get to, Sean McDermott's probably going to have to be in the conversation for Coach of the Year. Can he do it? I don't know. We'll find out. But man, oh man, that's an extreme take there. Kit Kat 0036. Last preseason, the biggest concerns were linebacker and the offensive line, and that all turned out just fine. Thanks for that, Kit Kat. And look, again, this is all kind of stemming back from some of my reactions to Saturday's game and what I saw, which, by the way, not just preseason, but also training camp. And that's fair. I remember a year ago at this time, Spencer Brown felt like a big question mark. Terrell Bernard versus Tyrell Dodson was a battle that I was not interested in watching. I wanted a quality veteran middle linebacker on this team. I mean, they never got it. Shit, man. Terrell Bernard didn't even play in the preseason last year. Got hurt. Didn't end up mattering. I get that. I know what you're saying. Right now, basically what you're saying without saying it is you don't need to overreact. And that's fair. That is very, very fair. But, regardless of how last year turned out with Spencer Brown and Terrell Bernard, doesn't mean that I'm not going to be wary of some things going on with this football team right now. I'm very wary of the safety position. I'm going to put that out there right now. Like, the difference between Spencer Brown and Terrell Bernard were those guys were very raw last year, but you could see the talent. Like, they were good. Plus, they were both third-round draft picks. There's a lot to like about both those players. This year, when I say I'm wary of the safety position, I'm talking about right now as things stand, Taylor Rapp and Damar Hamlin are your starters. Now, I'm not so much, high on them. And then it's not even so much that they're young players with all this room to go. Not that they're old players, but I kind of feel like with Taylor Rapp, with Damar Hamlin, it's almost like what you see is what you get. And Mike Edwards as well. If he gets on the field anytime soon, who the hell knows with that? So when I say I'm wary of the safety position, it's not like, I'm not even saying Cole Bishop. Cole Bishop is young. He's a rookie. He gets healthy. He might struggle a little bit at first, but he's one of those guys who probably has really high-end, high-ceiling potential. I don't think Rapp, Hamlin, Mike Edwards, I really don't think they have high-ceiling type potential. So safety is just one position where I'm absolutely worried about. Puckhead, 716. I watched the Bills go 0-4 in preseason games in 1990. Me and my friends wanted the coach and GM fired. I will never care ever again about the preseason except that there's an injury. And if I had it my way, I would never start starters or their backups. Well, you got to play somebody, dude. I mean, come on, Buckhead. By the way, I remember those days too. I'm old enough. I remember it was Club Marv. I remember those days very well. The Bills training camp for the veterans was almost like a little mini vacation. I don't think a team ever cared about the preseason less than the Marv Levy coached Buffalo Bills teams, especially during that era. I am team for what it's worth. Don't play your starters either. In fact, I had a very spirited conversation on yesterday's show with Joe from Queens about this. I don't want to play the starters either. But if you're going to do it, if you're going to play the starters, do it with some semblance of a purpose. Like Saturday, it felt like they played them just to play them. And I don't like that at all. Why bother if you're not going to at least scheme up a few things, and they don't got to be nothing fancy that you're worried about 31 other teams picking up on, but just scheme something even a little bit more than the basic bare bones. If you're going to have your offense out there to kind of set them up for success, or on the defensive side as well, because otherwise it's pointless to me. So good point there, man. At the Bops 4180. You all must have forgotten the poor start last season versus the Jets. Buffalo ain't good enough to simply turn on and off or flirt with their form. Form builds momentum. That was a shocker. Talk about Saturday here. Time will tell. Buffalo has such a 2024 tough schedule. Given all the roster changes, supporters are holding their breath. All right. Thank you for that. I agree with a lot of this take, though I don't think looking dull or sharp in the preseason is really going to change any of that. Like, if that was your take last week before the Bills opened up the preseason, I'd be like, hell yeah, I'm on board with you 100%. I don't know if you're basing what you're saying on what you saw on Saturday. I mean, you did say that was a shocker in your comment, which, again, nothing should shock you whatsoever about the preseason. But yeah, look, I agree. The Bills, if you come out, you look sloppy, then you get into the regular season, and they lost against the New York Jets. Although I would argue in that particular game, the season opener last year, that the defense played great, and Josh Allen lost them the game. Josh Allen sucked against the New York Jets in the opener week 1 last year. But yeah, they started slow. Look, they were 4-3 after 7 games. They were 5-5 after 10. They were 6-6 after 12. They never really got any consistency going. Maybe I might listen to a reasonable argument that by looking solid in camp in the preseason, you're building some momentum going into the season. I don't know. One thing that you said that sticks out to me, and I need to reiterate this because you're 100% right, is the schedule is tough. There is especially 2 stretches right now during this season that are really, really hard. Weeks 2 through 6, you're at Miami, you're at home against the Jags in prime time, and you're at Baltimore, you're at Houston, you're at the New York Jets. That 2 through 6 is brutal. And then later in the season, so you got Kansas City. This is like weeks 11 through 15. You got KC at home, then you got a bye, and then you got Frisco at home, then you're at the Rams, and you're at Detroit. Those are 2 very almost like borderline murderous parts of the schedule for the Buffalo Bills. I've been saying it this entire time, and I'm sure we'll talk about it plenty more going into the season. There's been an aura for me, an aura of uncertainty with this team, and it's a little bit alarming. I'm not going to lie about it. At Michael Childs, 7958. I really do not think that MVS is a good football player. Sorry, he played with Rodgers and Mahomes, and what has he done? I am not impressed. Well, what he has done, in fairness to MVS, is he played well in the playoffs. 3 catches last year, I think, of at least 30 yards. He had a touchdown in the Super Bowl. 2 years ago in the AFC title game with Kansas City against Cincy, he had over 100 yards receiving. So he's done it on bigger stages. He's made bigger plays on bigger stages. And for whatever reason, his catch success rate is unbelievable in the playoffs compared to the regular season. But I get it. He's been very average, very ordinary for the Buffalo Bills throughout all training camp. And he dropped the pass against Chicago on Saturday. That certainly didn't do anything to to make you feel a little bit better about him being a guy who you can rely on. All that said, I still think he makes his team, though. I mean, I've flirted with not having him on my 53-man roster projections that I do inside my head almost every single day, but I still think he makes his football team. You got your top four. I think MVS is 5. I think you keep a 6, probably Shavers, who could play special teams. I just think the history that MVS has, the proven experience in big moments, and even if he's just a one-trick pony who gets downfield a handful of times a year, makes a couple big plays, that alone makes it worth rostering for me. Phil Gibson says, a play that really stood out was a long run by the Bears, and you can watch Taylor Rapp just running backwards, never attacking the play. He finally stopped running backwards after the tackle was made. All right, so you're preaching to the choir right now with Taylor Rapp, and I remember that play specifically from Saturday. I was kind of borderline yelling at my TV. I'm not a big fan of Taylor Rapp starting. I'm not. I remember having a conversation on this show with Bruce Nolan, somebody whose opinion I value and respect very, very much. And he said it months ago. For you to say Taylor Rapp's going to be a good starting safety this year, you're projecting a lot because there was not a lot last year that we saw that would show that Taylor Rapp is a quality starting safety. Now, I do look back, there was a game, and I do look back last year to the Miami season finale, and Taylor Rapp almost single-handedly clinched the game by himself. He made a fantastic pass knockdown on a long pass, and then he sealed the deal with an interception onto to give the Bills a division. So, and he got hurt on the play, unfortunately, but we've seen moments from Taylor Rapp, but not a lot of consistent play. I think you're going to notice, I'm sorry, but I'm just, being objective here. I think you're going to notice a Poyer and Hyde absence back there. I think we took for granted how great these guys were for most years. And last year they were not great. They were relatively ordinary, but still, right now, if you had your choice, even in the year 2024, even at their back end of their careers, and I would ask you an honest question, and you're going to be honest with yourself. If you could have Jordan Poyer get cut by Miami tomorrow and re-sign with the Bills and pair him with Micah Hyde, get him off the couch, and you could have Hyde and Poyer week 1, 2024, or you could have Damar Hamlin and Taylor Rapp week 1, who would you take? Who would you take? If I'm being honest with myself, I think I would and I wouldn't love either scenario, but I think I would actually take Hyde and Poyer right now if I had my choice week 1 for this team. So I hope Mike Edwards gets better, and I hope Cole Bishop gets better, and I hope both of them become something because I do not love the safeties at all for the Bills right now. 3 more here. Dark Side 217. The Bills need to worry about the safeties. I really think Hamlin wouldn't be on the team if he didn't almost die. We need some real depth there. All right. First part I agree with fully. I just talked literally about the safeties. I'm worried about the starters. I'm worried about the depth if Bishop and Edwards can't get healthy. But come on, man. That second part's just ridiculous. I hate when people say that shit. That really freaking annoys me. Damar Hamlin is not on this football team right now because he almost died. Damar Hamlin earned his spot on the football team. He earned it last year. He's earned what he's doing right now. He was pretty good before that near death, man. He did a pretty decent job as a starter when he had to step up when the Bills had safety injuries a couple of years ago. He has some value on special teams. I mean, that's just an absolutely, utterly ridiculous statement, man. I'm not going to dignify that anymore. Don't come at me, people, saying that Damar Hamlin's on this football team because he almost died. That just sounds, you make yourself sound, in all due respect to the commenter, or if you're thinking at home in all due respect, well, actually not a lot of due respect, because I think you're an idiot if you say something like that. That's just absolutely stupid. All right, 2 more here. Gregory says, Javon Sullivan's got the juice and edge bend. No other Buffalo Bills defensive end has outside of a healthy Miller. One of my most optimistic and few optimistic things to take away from the Bears game, and I'm only talking about the Bears game. I'm not talking about the team's fortunes in general, but I thought Javon Sullivan played very well. I think you've seen a few glimpses of it on Saturday. Couple good run defensive plays by Solomon as well. And I think he's seen a few glimpses of it at camp. He may always be a one-trick pony because of his size and, well, not so much his size, but his height. But again, he looks, at least he showed some promise and he can do some nice things in the run game as well. I do love that he's learning from Von Miller. Say what you will about Von Miller and the shit that happened off the field, the fact that he was washed, at least last year he was washed. Some of his absurdly inaccurate predictions that never ever come true. But I do think he's a great mentor and a teacher. And to be able to have a full year of learning from Von Miller, I think it's going to help Javon Solomon greatly. I think Solomon could become useful on this team sooner than later. I don't know if that's week 1 of this year. He's making the team, but I don't know if it's week 1. But at some point, maybe during this season, even as a rookie, he might have a pretty defined role. He might become that guy when you're protecting a lead in the fourth quarter or it's third and long. You need somebody who's out there literally just to get after the quarterback and nothing else. Maybe you find a role for Javon Solomon even as early as this year. All right, last one here. This is, and again, I'm kind of almost thinking about this in real time. And I want to get your opinions on this one especially. If the Bills were a disaster this year, or something happened that Sean McDermott was fired or resigned after the season, for whatever reason, he's not the head coach, who'd be your best realistic choice to be the next head coach of the Buffalo Bills? I love that question. This is a real twister, a little brain twister here for me, because I don't know. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it because I don't see any scenario short of health reasons or something crazy happening where Sean McDermott is not going to be the head coach of this football team for at least the next handful of years. So I haven't spent a lot of time thinking about that. And you also said realistic. So I can't say Andy Reid. I can't say Sean McVay because that shit ain't happening. So realistic. A lot of people might not agree with this, but I would monitor the New York Giants. You said realistic here, and I think it's very realistic that the New York Giants could suck again this year like they did last year. I'd monitor the Giants. If Brian Daboll became available, I'd give him strong consideration because he was here before, and you saw what Josh Allen was for Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll loves Josh Allen. Josh Allen loves Brian Daboll. It was a great fit. I would absolutely give consideration to him. Ben Johnson, the coordinator from Detroit, maybe. I don't really know. I want to say Bill Belichick, but his time, I think, is passed him by. I think he's going to be happy doing TV stuff. So, no, I can't say Bill Belichick. I can't bring myself to say that. I don't think he'd be necessarily a great fit for the Bills. But yeah, Daboll, maybe Ben Johnson. I don't know. What do you think, though? I haven't thought about it a lot. Like, I love the question. Like, what are your thoughts? If Sean McDermott don't work out and something crazy happens to get him fired, or he just decides he wants to resign, any scenario where Sean McDermott is not the head coach of the Buffalo Bills beyond this year, who would be your pick? I want to hear from you on that. On that note, it's going to be it for this week's Podbag. Again, if you want to have your question, your comment, your take included, go to the Talk Buffalo YouTube channel, tweet at me, email me your question, your comment, your take, and I'll make sure to get it on the show next week. Thank you very much for listening. I appreciate y'all very much, and I'll be back. Brand new episode of Talking Buffalo coming tomorrow.